also production cars with racing-inspired model names or technology, or maybe drivers were involved in the design. So a pretty broad network casting. But it's all in celebration of the recent opening of our new exhibit, Driven to Win, Racing in America, presented by General Motors. And I hope some of you had a chance to see that exhibit. If not, please do as soon as you get the opportunity. We've got 29 different racing cars in there. We're covering close to 125 years of automotive racing history in the United States. And we really look at the various cars, certainly, but also the landscapes, the venues, the tracks, and of course the people that make racing in the United States special and make it distinct from other parts of the world. We're going to get a little taste of that, though, this afternoon in our racing program. We've got some cars here that represent various forms of racing, various time periods as well. But anytime you're going to start a race, the only way to do it is to start it with a pace car. So that is what we'll do. We're going to bring up from our own collection here a 1953 Ford Sunliner convertible. This was the actual pace car used at the 1953 Indianapolis 500. And we've got our conservative goon win at the wheel. Goon, thank you for pulling it up here. And yeah, the Indy 500, of course, is an American institution, right? It's like the Kentucky Derby of motor racing. Even folks who don't follow auto racing will sometimes tune into the Indy 500 just to see it. We celebrated it just a few weeks ago. Helio Castroneves won, so we now have four four-time winners of the Indy 500. That was a big deal, a big moment in Indy history. The race has been going on continuously since 1911. The track itself was opened in 1909, initially with just a crushed stone surface, which proved very quickly to be a little too dangerous, so they paved the whole thing with bricks. Over 3 million bricks, I think, went into it, and for years it was still known as the Brickyard, even though the brick surface was finally fully paved in the early 1960s. But that race is an American tradition, 500 miles around, and every year they start the race with a pace car. The race begins with a rolling start. In other words, the cars aren't stopped at the starting line and then get the green flag and they start. They're moving around, kind of getting up to speed. The pace car gets them organized, gets them ready to roll. And then when the green flag rolls, the pace car pulls away and off they go. 500 miles of racing. For many years, the pace cars were chosen on a rotating basis, right? So any number of manufacturers might have supplied the pace car to the race. Certainly Studebaker did, certainly Chevrolet with different models over the years, Ford over the years. Often they would try to tie it in with a new model introduction or maybe with a significant anniversary, and that was the case in 1953. Ford Motor Company was founded in 1903, so by 1953, celebrating their golden anniversary. So they were given the opportunity to pace the race. And this is what they came up with. A 1953 Sunliner. Notice the special details on the side, Ford official pace car. The lettering looks gold, and in fact, it is gold. It reflects of at least 23 karat gold leaf, said to be in the paint for that car. It's also said that there may be some flecks of gold in the upholstery. I'm not sure about that, but it certainly looks shiny in gold. The dashboard, the trim is all gold as well, so a very special automobile. The driver of the pace car that year was William Clay Ford, who was the youngest son of Edsel and Eleanor Ford and the youngest grandson of Henry Ford. He drove the car, riding with him shotgun, so to speak, was Wilbur Shaw, who himself was a three-time Indy 500 winner, but at that time he was the president and sort of managing director of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So the two of them would have done the laps. This wasn't the only car Ford sent down. They also sent a second pace car like this as a backup in case something went wrong. And they also sent 999, the race car from 1902, which if you've been into the museum, you've seen that car, the one that Barney Oldfield made a name for himself with. But William Clay Ford drove the 999 in demonstration laps at the Indy 500 that year as well. And point of trivia, who won the Indy 500 in 1953? Anybody know? Want to shout it out? Bill Volkovich won the race that year, and he was presented with one of these pace cars, though not one of the originals. The other great landmark in 1953 was Ford produced 2,000 replicas of this car for sale to the public, one of those given to Volkovich. That was, so far as we know, the first time a manufacturer had sold pace car replicas to the public. And now that's just standard practice. Any automaker that has a pace car there will give you the pace car package. And so far as we know, a number of those cars still survive, though they are somewhat different. The lettering, of course, is identical. They don't use the actual gold leaf in the lettering, sorry to say. They also don't have wire wheels. They have a more solid disc wheel, so that makes our car special as well. And should mention with me today, Greg Ingold from Hagerty, and the editor of the Hagerty Price Guide. Greg, I don't know if you had any thoughts on the Indy 500 or the pace car here?
No, I think the cool thing about the pace cars, like you mentioned, with the you could buy a replica of that car. It's as a race fan, you could almost have like a piece of the race, and you know, I think that's really the earliest time where you might have something what you'd call of a an instant collector car, where or something that you know it wasn't going to be your daily driver. You buy an Indy pace car replica, you have the lettering. That's not something you're going to drive to work every day. So I would say that's really kind of the early stages of a brand new car made to be an instant collector, and that's far more common today.
Yep, absolutely. And I guess we should say powered by the Ford V8, 255 cubic inches and about 125 horsepower. As I recall, they tuned the engine to get the car's top speed up to about 90 miles an hour, faster than a standard Sunliner. But if you're going to be the pace car at the Indy 500, you should be able to keep up with the race cars, right?
Absolutely.
At least as they're getting staged and set to race. So, Goon, thank you very much. And oh no, Goon may possibly be out of gas. So if we've got some folks who can give him a hand here. It happens. That's all right. Oh, wait a minute. Well, more than once, folks racing in the Indy 500 have run out of gas because of poor pit strategy. So this is authentic from that point of view.
Well, and this is also a display car, so you can't expect it to have a full tank of gas at all times. It will go bad eventually.
To be fair, it's partly my fault, too. I was rambling on while he had the car idling. I should have made it faster. Thank you, Goon. By the way, if you want to see that car, it is over in the lodge at the corner of Christie and Main across from the carousel, as well as a 1955 Chevrolet that replicates a car driven by Herb Thomas to victory at the Southern 500 that year. So you get a chance to see both the Ford V8 and a Chevy small block V8, two engines that I think defined stock car racing in the United States at that time period.
Absolutely.
Excellent. All right, we have another pusher here, which is fine.
Yeah, so we have a 1967 Midget Roadster owned by Michael Stewart of Dearborn Heights.
Yeah, and these midgets are fantastic. They're sort of a budget approach to getting into automobile racing. Anytime you're building, whether it's a race car or anything else, of course, if you make it a little smaller, you scale down the size, and as a result, you also scale down the cost. So it's a little less expensive for competition. But this is the sort of car that used to represent the pathway to getting into Indianapolis Speedway racing. Drivers would start in these midget cars, racing on local dirt tracks, building up their skills and their experience. A lot of that shifted, and frankly, I think we have to blame Ford and Lotus for some of that shift in 1965 when Jimmy Clark won with the Lotus Ford 38. That was a car more influenced by European-style Formula One racing than it was by American dirt track racing. So now the cars really are more closer to Formula One than they are to dirt track cars like this midget here. But prior to that, as I say, that was really the road to the Indy 500, passed through with one of these cars. And if I'm not mistaken, I think you've got an Offenhauser engine there powering that car. Is that correct? No, not an Offenhauser. Okay. Well, the Offenhauser, Chevy. Okay, fantastic. But the Offenhauser four-cylinder dominated Indy for many years. But yeah, Chevrolet engine, that makes sense as well in this car. And I would say these have sort of evolved into the world of Outlaws cars that we see today.
Absolutely. Yeah. And kind of like the current Outlaws cars. I mean, very small, very light, a lot of horsepower for the size. So the power to weight ratio is off the charts. So I mean, you are getting that full bore big race car experience for a very small budget. So these cars are pretty hairy.
If you've ever seen those outlaw races, even on TV, it's worth watching. It's crazy. You're right. I mean, the way those cars are so light and so much power, they're a real bear to handle. And now they have the giant wings up on the top, just to hold the track, or the car to the track, I should say, by generating a little more downforce. And incidentally, also provides a little more advertising space on the car too, which is, at the end of the day, racing runs on money, and sponsorship is a big part of it. But fantastic. So thank you very much for bringing out the midget. We appreciate it.
Well, and as you mentioned, as they're pushing it away, like getting into Indy, big racers like Tony Stewart, Jeff Gordon, AJ Foyt all started in cars not exactly like this, but very similar. So some of the greats have started out in midgets.
Absolutely. All right, we're back to the UK with our MG here.
It's a 1948 MGTC owned by Ken and Melody Clemmer of Farmington Hills.
All right, Ken is all suited up in the goggles. Love it. This is a sports car in the original sense of the term. These are the kind of cars that American GIs serving overseas during World War II saw in the UK and in Europe. And it's a car meant for driving for fun, really. There's nothing in the way of creature comforts here, or at least not very much. Certainly no windows as you see here. I mean, there is a rudimentary top you can put up, I guess, in the case of a better. Not even with this one do you have the top. So this is a fair weather automobile.
Got to
but-
save the weight.
yeah, that's right. A top is just dead weight. But out of these kinds of sports cars evolves the notion of sports car racing in the United States. And I guess I would characterize sports car racing as being different because you have right turns involved in that
Yeah,
as well.
yeah,
right?
exactly.
You're running on road circuits rather than on ovals. And you also have changes in elevation, which are a whole new game, too, when you have to go uphill and downhill over the course of the race. And the Sports Car Club of America, I think, was founded in 1944, right around the World War II time period. And for a number of years, sanctioned amateur events. So I've encouraged sports car racing and competition among gentlemen drivers. I guess we'll put it that way. Would race for fun on the weekends. It's evolved over the years. They began sanctioning pro races or professional races in the early 1960s. And I think they do still sanction some professional events now, too, in addition to amateur events.
Yeah, precisely. The neat thing that I'm noticing about this MG is, from all outward appearances, this looks like a car that could have been picked up from the showroom, and you take off the full windscreen, bolt on the smaller windscreens, take off as much as you can possibly get away with while still staying within your regulations and go racing. I mean, this is certainly a car that you could go pick up, go racing, and then drive it home if you felt so inclined and the weather was cooperating with you.
Absolutely. And we'll give you a chance. Anything you wanted to add about the car or tell us?
Well, we bought the car about 5 years ago, and it was owned by somebody for 51 years. So he loved this car and did a lot of the restoration work on it. He used it as a daily driver. And then it sort of fell into disrepair and got shoved outside his garage, and I found it there and brought her home and put her back on the road.
Beautiful. We appreciate you sharing it with us today. Thank you so much.
And this next one is a lot more quintessentially American style racing. I mean, we're talking about a 53 Olds 88 from the R.E. Olds Transportation Museum.
Absolutely. And these are the days when stock car racing truly was stock car
Yes.
racing, right? And when we say stock, we're referring to a car sort of taking out of a dealer's stock, right? So they're supposed to look like the cars that we drive every day. These are not special purpose-built machines for racing. Now, obviously, that has changed a lot over the years, and these days, a stock car is really just, it looks superficially like the model cars that are in production today. And really, they're a spec series more than anything, I think, NASCAR, running the same basic body.
Yeah, the only thing stock about it is the manufacturer's emblem on there.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. But not so when this car was competing in the mid-1950s. We should say NASCAR was established right after World War II. There were a number of regional stock car competition outfits, and this was popular in the American South, the Southeast. And yes, it did grow out of bootlegging, right? Running moonshine whiskey in these competition cars. And in that case, you wanted a car that could go fast, that had the horsepower, but you didn't want it to look fast, right? You wanted
Right.
something that flew under the radar. So you kept that outside stock appearance. And Big Bill France, kind of brought together the various regional stock car competition agencies and brought them together in Daytona and decided, we've got to create some kind of a uniform body to make this happen. So that became the National Association for Stock Car Auto Racing, right? I
Right.
think that's what it's a little redundant. But
Yes.
that's the name. You get car out of that, NASCAR. But why don't you tell us a little bit about your Rocket 88 here?
All right. Well, this vehicle was raced by a gentleman, Dick Passwater. You can see his name up on the roof here. He was an early NASCAR racer. He loved his Oldsmobiles, and this particular car raced in Charlotte, won a race in Charlotte, and placed in the top 10 in 9 other races during 1953. Dick got out of the NASCAR circuit after his sponsor, Frank Arford, passed away, and so he didn't have the sponsorships afterwards. And he donated this vehicle to the museum a number of years ago, and he passed away last year, unfortunately.
We appreciate you bringing it to us. And I should say a word about the Rocket 88. If you know that song, that's often cited as maybe the first true rock and roll song. So another sort of cultural milestone brought to us by the automotive industry. So thank you so much. I'm not going to sing Rocket 88. No, sorry about that. You can listen to Jackie Benson and his Bearcats. All right. Well, generally, Ferrari is a somewhat dirty word around here. These parts.
Yes,
because
yes,
we,
very much.
yes, if you've seen the movie Ford versus Ferrari, came out a couple of years ago, you know the story. Ford Motor Company tried to buy Ferrari in the early 1960s. The deal fell through, so Henry Ford II basically decided if we can't buy him, we're going to beat him and beat him at the 24 Hour of Le Mans, which after a few rough years they managed to do in 1966 and again in 1967. But we're going to celebrate Ferrari here, and we're joined by our friends at the M1 Concours. And tell us what you brought for us today.
Hey, Matt, great to see you. So this is a 1977 Ferrari Dino GT4. So this one's actually one of the last of the hand-built generation Ferraris before they really went into more modern manufacturing processes. This particular one has 37,000 original miles on it, and it's one of the carbureted cars. So this was pre-fuel injection. So it's I actually grabbed it out of one of the garages this morning from M1. Hadn't been fired up, started right up, drove it all the way down Telegraph. And I'll tell you what, shifting gears, going through the gated shifter was a great way to start out an awesome weekend out here.
Well, you've got some exciting things going on at the M1 Concours and coming up later this year. I wonder if you wanted to tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. There's a lot happening this year at M1. Actually, this morning we had Cars and Coffee, our first one for the year. And I saw the pictures from the guys. We had 2,500 cars show up and 3,000 people at 8:30 this morning. So it's just, it was amazing to see both sides of the 1.5 mile long circuit were covered with cars for everybody to see. So there's a pent up demand, as we can see, to get back to cars. And we have those running every month. In addition to that, there are a couple of big events we're very proud of. The first one that'll kick off really the season just before Dream Cruise weekend will be Motor Trend's Roadkill Nights. So that's coming back. That'll be the weekend before Dream Cruise. Then we get into Dream Cruise weekend, where here at M1 we're launching our Woodward Dream Show. So that's kind of more of a, as you know, a curated show with a focus of past, present, and future. And really the focus of the cars are hot rods, muscle cars, customs cruisers, rat rods, tuners, like anything that you would see in the past or today on Woodward, we want it out there. And for that show, Friday and Saturday, we actually have parking inside the concourse for over 2,000 cars. So if people want to come out and enjoy Dream Cruise, see the cars, they're more than welcome to bring anything out there. You know, just like a star getting into a nightclub, the star gets in for free. So the car gets on property for free. You guys just have to pay for a ticket. Then right after that, we have Motor Bella. So the Detroit Auto Show is coming back with DADA. So Motor Bella will be on site where people can check out, you know, the newest from the OEMs and even have a chance to get behind the wheel and get in the cars with some of them on the circuit. And then finally, a show that we're very proud of, and we hope that you guys will still be a part of it as planned, will be our American Speed Festival. And that's going to be a celebration of everything racing performance. We're very excited to announce that Jim Hall is coming. He's bringing 4 of the chaparrals out of the Petroleum Museum. Jim's going to fly up with his son and his grandson, and they're going to run 2 of the chaparrals in tandem on the track for a driving demonstration. We've got some McLarens locked down, Shadows, Lolas, even a McKee Olds. We have an IndyCar class, an endurance class. We found out last week that a gentleman's bringing out a 1960 Tipo Maserati birdcage, and he's going to run it on the circuit. So if you guys have octane running through your veins like I do, Speed Festival is going to be something that you just can't miss.
Excellent. Sounds like a fantastic season ahead. And for more information, you're over on the corner of the Village Green there, right? Happy to talk to folks. So thank you for bringing out the Dino. We appreciate it. And should say Dino is Enzo Ferrari's son, passed away young, as I recall. The car is named in his tribute. But great to have a Ferrari with us here. And you mentioned Jim Chaparral there, too, who really pioneered ground effects and aerodynamics in racing cars in the 1960s. So we should definitely give a shout out to him as well. So we had a chance to look at some sports cars and some stock cars and some dirt track cars and an Indy car of a sort with our pace car. But we should add that when you visit our Driven to Win exhibit, you'll also get to see land speed racing, very popular, of course, in the Bonneville area. Think about the Salt Flats here where you have 40-some square miles of empty space, and you can take 10 miles to get up to your top speed and then slow down. We have the Goldenrod on display, which set a speed of 409.277 miles an hour, and those speed records just keep climbing. I think the next kind of holy grail is 1,000 miles an hour, right, in a land car.
Right.
Nobody's gotten there yet, but it seems inevitable. We talk about hill climb racing in Pikes Peak, which is coming up in just a few weeks in Colorado, and that's racing up a mountain and having to deal with all of those twists and turns and the weather challenges. Sometimes at Pikes Peak, it can be a sunny day at the base of the mountain. By the time you get to the top, it's cold and snowing, so that's its own challenge. And then drag racing, another kind of quintessential form of racing where you just have two cars from the standing start racing the quarter mile. And that's, I think that's more popular in the U.S. maybe than it is anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's one of the things that kind of sets apart American racing. We like to be able to see all the action at once, right? So we don't want a track necessarily like Monza where some of it's hidden, from the stands.
We like to go in a straight line or in a circle.
Yeah, right, exactly. And we like things fast too.
Yes.
That's why we're not too big on the 24-hour or 12-hour endurance competitions here. 500 miles in a couple of hours is enough, right? And when you want to talk short racing, drag racing doesn't get any better than that, right? Where you could,
if you have attention deficit disorder like me, it's perfect.
there you go. You go and you can watch car after car going through over the course of a weekend. So excellent. Well, we appreciate all of you coming out here for the show. There'll be more, of course, tomorrow in our passenger review as we get into the cars from the 1960s and 1970s. Village is open until 9 o'clock tonight, so there's a lot more time to have fun, grab a little more food, see a few more cars. So thank you very much. We'll see you again soon. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.